We're here to talk to you about live content, and specifically we've used Facebook Live as an example throughout this, but I think the principles that we'll talk about kind of apply to all kinds of live content. So be that if you're trying out Periscope, if you're taking photos at a live event and tweeting them in real time, kind of all these principles we'll talk about. This is a very short clip of the first live stream that went out on the web, the first commercial live stream anyway. These are some guys in a band called Severe Tire Damage, and basically they were rehearsing in a studio next to some guys who were working out how to stream live content on the web. And the guys that were these engineers working out how to do this live content basically said, hey, we should put this gig out, that'd be quite cool. So they worked with these guys who then went on to do this quite a few times. With the rise of Facebook Live and kind of Periscope as well, clients have started to ask more and more, how can we do this? Is this something we should be doing at events and product launches? And it leads to some interesting questions. That is all driven by technology. It's all driven by the fact that we've moved away from these terrible old clunky phones to these beautiful iPhones that people really do love all around the world. And it brings to me a little bit of a concern in that I think live streaming has such great potential. I really wouldn't want it to go the way of things like the internet fridge, QR codes, or 3D printing. So this is a friend of mine on Facebook. At the launch, he runs a magazine in China that's kind of for expats, and this is him live streaming his own event on Facebook. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this does not sell the event to me particularly. This is not a place I want to be. It works well, maybe it works well for him, but it personally kind of puts me off. I'll just let this play. This is a video done by a personal user, so this isn't a brand representation, even though obviously he is kind of an ambassador for his own brand. And obviously brands wouldn't do something that poor, you'd hope, but unfortunately it's not always the case. This is something that went out about 2 weeks ago from UN Water, which is obviously a really important, charitable page on Facebook. They have 72,000 followers, so they're not huge, but they're certainly not tiny. And this is one of their major conferences, and this is the way they decided to represent it online. They're not alone in this. I mean, these videos are from Reuters, BBC Sport, and some major pages in the US. And I think this syndrome of kind of giant faces talking at you through live content is becoming more and more common. It's certainly something I see quite a lot of on my newsfeed on Facebook. And it's really functional, it's fine, it's okay, but it doesn't do justice to what could be really great content. The thing that's a real shame here is that none of these videos interacted with the audience in any way. They didn't call for comments, they didn't read what was taking place, so there's no real reason for them to be live. And if they weren't live, they could probably do a far better job of making them look beautiful. If your client says, can we do this great live thing? Can we stream this live, our next event? Just take a moment and say, we can, but should we? So the 3 questions I would put to you is, does anyone care if your content is live? Do you add any value to making it live? I think over and over again, when clients ask us to do live content, we realize that producing live content in that moment is of no value to anyone. There may be moments when it is. If you're covering something like a product launch, obviously that's something people fervently want to see there and then. If you have a really great interview with someone and you want audience participation live at that point, that's absolutely great and a perfectly viable reason to do it. But if you're not going to interact with your audience in any way, take a moment and think, if this goes out an hour or 2 hours later, does it matter? Is it going to be better? Can we do a better job? And if you absolutely are going to go live, can you make sure that you arm yourself correctly when doing so? Will an iPhone or an old Samsung Galaxy do the job for you, and will it represent your brand or client in a way that you want it to? What we would propose is that 95% of the time at least, that's not going to be the case, and we'd always recommend, where possible, trying to opt for a more professional solution. So setting out, making sure that you invest in high quality photography, cameras, and also in the people using them to make sure that the people you send out know how to frame a shot, know how to stop wind from rustling through the microphone. Things like that can just really benefit the content that you produce.
So our role was to offer digital support for the event. So we worked with the Patrons Lunch for about a year leading up to the day itself. And that ranged from everything from the digital strategy and the strategy that sat behind many of the communications, but also creating a lot of kind of the content and the lead up.
So with myself, most of my work is the first point of contact to our beneficiaries. whereby I go in and assess them, I serve as an advocate for them and give them the reassurance to make sure that what they have requested is being provided.
So we created all of those in the build-up to the event, and we posted them out, one every 3 weeks from sort of January through to June, right before the event. And sort of that was, it gave the charities a platform to talk about themselves and to promote the work they did, but it also it drew new audiences to our event through the social channels and the promotion that went behind it.
So once we were publishing content, we then immediately put paid behind it. So we knew we wanted to reach a mass audience, and the content we were producing kind of had a shelf life of at most, half a day. So paid went live with every major post we put out, targeted at both the people that we were hoping would attend the event, so that maybe that evening on the way home they'd get to relive it.
I think one of the first things to say is before the event started, we knew that we would have kind of dead time where we hadn't got content ready. And so we pre-prepared content that we knew we could push out. So we were editing it on the day and it was ready to go. And so there was a few things like, we created an animation of the infographic that we created about the event, so we could start pushing that out as soon as we arrived in the morning. So checklist for if you're going to cover an event with kind of content live or otherwise. So firstly, know your story. What's your angle? What story are you trying to tell? It's really easy with these events to kind of get sidetracked by something else that's going on, but really know what story you're going to tell at the end of the day. Plan around the challenges. So know that your event is a mile long or more or less. Know what might happen with the weather if it's outdoors, who you might need to face, what security issues you might need to overcome. Spend wisely. If you have budget, if you have a large budget to spend, don't naturally assume that means you need to go and spend on kit or crew or either or. Just think about what do we need to do here, what's the best way we're going to be able to do it. Be confident and agile. So don't be afraid to speak to people. Again, it's that kind of British thing of, should we bother that person? But people do want to talk generally if they're at an event. They do want to feel involved and engaged. And in terms of don't be afraid to kind of push someone out the way for a minute. I mean, don't be rude about it, but equally. Standing on a chair in front of an old lady to get a picture of the royal for 10 seconds did not ruin that lady's day, but it meant that we got a great bit of content. So, I think within certain boundaries, just be really confident about getting what you need. We found that having a teal jacket got us quite far on the day. So, use your accreditation, see what strings you can pull in terms of getting that accreditation for security clearance in advance. I mean, there was at one point on that day where I was stood there going, I can't believe I'm allowed to stand here. Like, there was nothing between me and the royals, and I was just thinking, am I meant to be here? But we were. So, that kind of security accreditation in advance is super important. Live together. So in advance of any event like this, you will have a large team. They will all have defined roles. Make sure that's briefed in advance so that you can really pull together as a team and there's no confusion on the day. And ultimately make sure that one person or two people, however it needs to work, but somebody is in control of that. So as an event unfolds, things always change, things always come up, but one person is at the center of coordinating what all those roles need to be doing at any one time. And enjoy it. I mean, it'd be really easy to get slightly irritated with colleagues who are warm and dry in a porta cabin when you're dripping and soaking wet and running a mile. But ultimately, these events, they are fun and it's a kind of a good thing to be part of. So whatever it is that you're doing, just enjoy it and just smile at your colleagues.
I think there's probably two possible routes. There'll be people that continue to do that slightly natty looking iPhone-based content, and I do think that'll turn a lot of people off. I think it'll be the thing people get pissed off of seeing in their newsfeed and they scroll past, and I hope that disappears. I hope that, and I think strides are already being taken. Facebook are either have or are very soon going to integrate so that you can cut between two cameras in the live feed, and that in itself for a consumer is a huge benefit. So as the tech improves, and hopefully that'll happen with pace, these things will improve.
The question still stands, does it need to be live or can it be slightly delayed? And I think, the new iPhone release needs to be live because someone will leak it, and there's people with iPhones on their heads around the world watching on the edge of their seats to see what's going to be released. But they have the budget and the capacity to do that to a really high production quality, and they will have people there editing it so it's coming through live. Now, if vloggers are covering an event or talking about something that doesn't need to be live, I think there's no reason for them to do it live. And they can actually just up the quality, even if that's shot on an iPhone, just take it back, edit it, just check it sounds and looks okay. And I think it just kind of massively increases the kind of quality of the output.
It's an interesting future ahead, I think, because it's something that social platforms are pushing more and more. They really want to see it succeed, just because it's a way to kind of hook people onto platforms for longer. Whether or not it does, I think, is down to people like us and down to people innovating in the technology that supplies it as well.